So everything is fine. Good afternoon, Hemil. Good afternoon, Abhishek, Sweksha, Yash. Okay. Sabko good afternoon. Now we are ready. Pending work is now over. So now all is well from our side. And I hope ki same from your side as well. Before we can move forward, if you have any doubt, you can ask. Because now we are going to move to the budget of India. That is called public budget. Private budget for we people, public budget of the government. Yes, when we make the budget, we see our income first and keeping in mind the likely income, the expenses are decided in order of preference. To maintain a proper balance between income and expenditure, can the same process be followed by the government? Answer is no. Now see the process of making budget in India. The process of budget starts with setting a target of this growth rate. Growth rate is decided. We have discussed in the past, not technically, significance of the word growth rate. I repeat, the process of budget starts with setting a target of growth rate, the rate at which production is increasing. Later on, we will discuss in terms of GDP growth rate. Growth is said to be a necessary condition. Before we can think about any of the other economic objective, the precondition is what? Production must increase. There has to be a growth. Growth is a necessary condition, but not the sufficient condition. Sufficient condition is called distribution of growth. If growth is missing, just forget the other economic objectives. So see, the process of economic budget in India starts with setting a target of growth rate. Now there is a difference we have seen in the recent time regarding approach of this growth. Earlier, we used to set a single digit growth target. For example, our growth rate target will be 8%. But for the last 3 to 4 years, we have seen a more pragmatic approach. Single digit growth target is now not focused. What the government is doing is setting a range. Okay, we should try to keep the growth rate, for example, in between 6 to 7%. So it seems to be more practical because future, is a very, very uncertain. And not only the domestic factors, but the global factors also, they are working. So now keeping in mind the growth rate, we have to get a growth target of 6 to 7%. It means for a big country like India, it has to grow at an average rate of 6 to 7%. But do you think it's so easy? No. Do you think it's automatic? Answer is no. To get the target of, yes, today this class is also live on YouTube. No issue? Yeah. तो कहीं से भी देखोगे नवनीत, you will get the same class. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Only for the public, because it's a new thing. And this 6 to 7% growth rate, it is not automatic. For that, government will have to set a target of budget, means expenditure, the volume of expenditure needed will be decided. Particularly those expenses which are going to increase production capacity of the country. Later on, we will come to know about these expenses. So they are called capital expenditure. And when capital expenditure increases, definitely revenue expenditure also, they are likely to increase because they are the maintenance cost of the country. These two we will discuss in detail later on. So setting a target of growth rate, then government determines or decides the expected expenditure. They are called budgeted expenditure. Budgeted expenditure, what is going to be the expenditure volume needed to get the target of this? So for that, for the current year, 2024-25, the size of the budget that has been decided, it is going to be rupees 48.21 lakh crore. This much of expenditure has to take place. to get the target of growth rate in between 6 to 7%. And after that, government will try to find its resources. From where the money will come. And government's own incomes, they are various types, but broadly they are classified under two heads: tax versus non-tax. Tax versus non-tax. So through taxation, government could manage only 63%. Through non-tax, it's a 9%. And from here, problem starts. The total receipts of the government's own incomes, they have never been sufficient to meet or finance the entire budget. And now there is a deficit. Okay. Since amount is bigger, I would take very small amount. Very small amount. Amount doesn't matter. It's all about the concept. So these are the actual figure for the budget for the year 2024-25. Okay, now I'm going to take a small amount, and then we will discuss. So suppose that budgeted expenditure, the expenditure required from government side to get the target of growth rate, it is only rupees 500. Okay. Now through taxation, government could manage 350, and through non-taxes only 50. So government's own incomes, they are only 400, but the size of the budget is 500. So government's own incomes, they are not sufficient to cover the budgeted expenditure. So there is a deficit. There is a deficit, and this has been the feature of Indian budget since independence. Okay, the budget expenditure, the budgeted expenditure of the government, it is always going to be bigger than the total incomes of the government. Or simply you can say, total incomes of the government, they have never been sufficient to meet the budgeted expenditure fully. And here the problem starts. Now, there are many options for the government. Let me ask one by one. First option, if the total incomes of the government, they are not sufficient, so then the first option is to cut the expenditure by rupees 100. To cut the expenditure by rupees 100. Can government do that? This is the question. Because in our case, there is a deficit of rupees 100. Can government cut the expenditure? All you people said no. Now it has become a very common phenomena. I cannot say a wrong answer from your side. What is the reason behind that? Government cannot behave in the same manner what we people used to behave. Why government cannot cut the size of the budget? Because if the size of the budget is reduced, it means you are going to compromise where? To here. And if you compromise here, it means you are going to compromise everywhere. So government cannot cut the expenditure. Now another option for the government to generate more revenue to fulfill the targeted expenditure. Okay, leaving the non-tax revenue, they are very low as compared to tax. So come to now tax. To generate more tax revenue, there are three options. Three options I am going to give you to generate more and more tax revenue. First is to impose new taxes. Second, to increase the existing tax rate. And the third, to make tax system more productive through tax reform. So here there are three options. So in your opinion, which one is the best? Definitely, all you are correct. It's the third one, tax reform. Now, in the past, never we thought about going for tax reform. Instead, first and the second option, they were exercised. Government kept on imposing new taxes, and time to time, tax rates were increased. Now the limit is over. Already India's average tax rate is higher than the global average. And even today, we are paying more than 15 to 16 taxes. Some of them going to central government, some of them going to state government. Regarding GST, I told you, the global average of GST, it is in between 6 to 7%. In India, it's 12 to 13%. The 28% GST rate of India, it is highest in the world. So now these two possibilities are completely ignored. The reason is, beyond a certain beyond a certain level, you cannot increase the tax rate. Reason is, when people are paying more taxes, so they are going to be left with less money for consumption expenditure. So do you think it will affect the aggregate demand of the country? If we people are forced by the government to pay tax at a very, very high rate, so after paying more taxes, we people will be left with less money. So our personal disposable income is going to come down. So it will adversely affect the aggregate demand of the country. Demand of the country is definitely going to come down. And when demand is coming down, yes, this is the worst thing you can have in economy. So many times I have told you, if you want to keep economy alive, we will have to keep demand alive. India, basically, it is going to bring recession. Okay? So that is not possible now. Moreover, it's a democracy. Every after 5 years, you have to meet the people. And India, people of India, they are very, very sensitive people. It is a country, ऐसी देश है कि जहाँ पे प्याज और टमाटर पे सरकार गिर जाती है. Taxation can be a big issue. So now these two options, imposing new taxes and increasing the existing tax rate, now they are out of the question. So the best way to go for tax reform. Let us make our tax system more progressive to bring more and more people under the tax net. Evasion of taxes should be reduced, and moreover, avoidance of taxes should be gone. Recently, we have taken the measure, and GST came 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, and till today, okay, now it's all fine. Yeah. So let us see now again. Some technical issue. So recently we have seen tax reform in the name of GST. Till today, it can be said that GST is quite successful, but still, I don't think that our tax system is able to generate sufficient revenue to the government. And every year, you can see the size of the budget is increasing. In between 10 to 15%. This is highly unlikely that in the coming years as well, our tax system will be sufficient enough to generate income for the government to meet all the expenditure. Okay. So government is unable to generate more revenue. So then where is the solution? Government cannot cut the expenditure and unable to generate sufficient revenue to meet the expenditure. So in our case, there is a deficit of rupees 100. From where this money will come? From where this money will come? So for the government, there are two options. Our deficit, you can see, the total budget is of 500 and total revenue that government could generate only 400. So there is a deficit of rupees 100. So from where the deficit will come? So for the government, there are two options. First is called borrowing, and the second is called disinvestment. First is called borrowing, and the second is called disinvestment. So broadly, two options are there with the government. And right now, I am discussing almost 2.5 section of your syllabus. Okay. Now under borrowing, there are three. First is from RBI. From RBI. Second is from public. From public. They are also known to be market borrowing. And third is called using public account money. Using public account money. So under borrowing, there are three options. First is borrowing from RBI. Second is borrowing from public. They are also called market borrowing. And third is called using public account money. Have you heard the name public account? Have you heard this name? Maybe in polity. Public account. Okay. So under borrowing, there are three. And this one is disinvestment. So four things we have to discuss. So broadly, there are two, borrowing and disinvestment. But under borrowing, there are three. Overall, they become four. They become four. And every year in prelims, one question is coming from each section. So we have to discuss everything in detail. And the main thing is our connectivity. We have to interlink the things. We have to connect the things. So firstly, I'm going for borrowing. And under borrowing, it's a borrowing from RBI. Remember, it's a budget of central government. Budget of central government. So I will start with the first one. First one is borrowing from RBI. Okay, borrowing from RBI. Borrowing from RBI. It's a RBI and it's a Government of India. Government here stands for Government of India. Okay, listen to me carefully. There was a time when central government had got unlimited borrowing power from the RBI. I repeat the sentence again. There was a time when central government had got unlimited borrowing power from RBI. What is the meaning of the word unlimited? Central government got unlimited borrowing power from the RBI. So what is the meaning of this? The word unlimited. It means central government can borrow without any limit up to any extent. Any extent. But state governments, their borrowing power from RBI was limited. State governments, they can also borrow, but their borrowing power from the RBI was limited. Not beyond this level, you can borrow from the RBI. And that is the correct approach. You cannot give unlimited borrowing power to the state government. Because there are few states, in fact, many states, if given the power, you can make unlimited borrowing from the RBI, I am sure they are going to make RBI empty. अरे मिसयूज तो बात की बात है, आरबीआई को खाली कर देंगे. I don't want to name those states, but I am sure. I am concerned with central government. Unlimited borrowing power. So whenever central government needed money, government used to issue its securities to the RBI. We have discussed the concept of securities. Okay? And against this security, RBI used to print the notes and giving to whom? To the government. Okay? 100 rupees. And government was borrowing to meet the expenditure to get the target of growth rate. See the complete sequence. Whenever Government of India needed money, it used to issue is securities. To whom? To the RBI. And against that security, RBI used to print the notes and giving to whom? To the government. Why government was taking loan from the RBI? To meet the expenditure to get the target of growth rate. Now let us say the name of the security. We have discussed earlier the concept of securities is a collective word, bill and bond. Do you remember? Bill and bond, both are debt instrument. But difference is bonds, they are issued for long-term loans whose maturity exceeds 1 year, and bills, they are for short-term loan whose maturity is less than 1 year. Moreover, one big difference, कि bonds, they carry fixed rate of interest, but the bills, they don't carry fixed rate of interest. So they are issued at a discount. They are issued at a discount. Everyone remembers? Sabko yaad hai? Okay. Now see the name of the security that was issued. You must have heard this name. This name you must have heard. It was called Treasury Bill. Have you heard this name? Yes or no? Treasury Bill. Okay. Now Treasury Bill, they are of two types. First is called ad hoc Treasury Bill. Ad hoc Treasury Bill. And the second is called regular Treasury Bill. Regular Treasury Bill. So central government used to issue ad hoc Treasury Bill to the RBI. Not this one. Okay. Central government used to issue ad hoc Treasury Bill to whom? To the RBI. Name of the security was ad hoc Treasury Bill of 100 was issued, and against that, RBI printed the notes, fresh currencies were printed and given to the government. Why government was taking loan from the RBI? To meet the expenditure to get the target of growth rate. I hope the entire process is clear, because the number of questions, they are going to come. Okay. Now see the board. This policy was very popular policy of the past. This policy continued till 1997. This policy continued even after reform of 91. And anyone can name this policy. Very popular policy of Government of India. Can anyone give the name of this policy? Can anyone? This is why I'm telling you, current is nothing. Because it's an outcome of the past. Okay. This policy was known to be deficit financing. Known to be deficit financing. Deficit financing. Deficit of the government was financed by the RBI. How? Through printing of the notes. Deficits of the government was financed by whom? By the RBI through printing of notes. I hope, note matlab paisa. I hope this point is clear, yes or no? See the sequence. The deficit of the government was financed by the RBI through printing of the notes. Deficit financing. Deficit of the government was financed by the RBI through printing of currencies. Fresh currency they were printed. I hope this point are you getting? This point is clear, yes or no? And that's why it was known to be monetized deficit. Monetized deficit. Deficit was monetized. ये points सब आप note कर लो, पहले समझ लो. Because even question can come. Question may be coming in your mind कि even today we are facing the problem of deficit. So instead of issuing a bond, what government can do, or RBI can print the notes and deficit can be met. Yes, monetize deficit. What is the meaning of the word monetize deficit? If the deficit is monetized, means to finance the deficit, fresh currencies are printed. I hope that this point is clear, yes or no? Deficit financing. And technically it is called monetized deficit. Even today, you can ask this question from the government, ki why you borrow from the public? Why you are issuing bonds? Better to monetize the deficit. Means printing the fresh currency, let the deficit be managed. Okay, so I hope that this point is clear. Till here, are you people comfortable? Yes or no? Because now I'm going to ask one question. This was one of the very popular policy of India in the past. And today, India is facing a number of problems. So because of the poor policies in the past, in 1990, Indian economy collapsed, both on external as well as internal front. So what was the reason? So a number of poor policies followed earlier, they led to the collapse of Indian economy. And this policy was one of them. One of them. One by one, I'm going to ask the question. If everything is clear, what was the main objective of the policy deficit financing? Yes. What was the main objective of this policy of deficit financing? Anyone? You have mentioned, Abhishek, to meet the expenditure, to eliminate deficit. Okay, yes, your answer is up to the mark. To get the objective of growth rate. To get the objective of growth rate. I hope this point is clear. The main objective of this policy of deficit financing to get the target of growth rate. What is growth rate? What is its significance? It has already been discussed. It's a necessary condition. Okay. Now this question, the question I asked, it came 3 years ago, UPSC Prelims. Same question. The main objective of the policy of deficit financing was, the correct answer was going to be to get the target of growth rate. One more question. Whenever Government of India is borrowing from the RBI, what will happen to money supply? Whenever Government of India is borrowing from the RBI, what will happen to money supply in the country? What will happen to the money supply of the country? Money supply in the country will increase, decrease, or remaining same. So it is going to increase. Now, when we discuss banking, now this fresh currencies printed by the RBI, technically they are called M0. M0, and they are also known to be high-powered money. It will have multiple impact on the economy. Although 100 rupees, they were printed by the RBI, but it will have multiple impact on the economic activities. They are called high-powered money, because regarding banks, you will come to know that banks create credit. Banks are involved in credit creation, and there we will discuss the concept of money multiplier. This 100 rupee can have impact worth 2,000 rupee in the economy, depending on the economic condition. But all you people are correct. That whenever Government of India is borrowing from the RBI, money supply will increase. More money will come into the market. And regarding money, you know that money alone can increase the demand, but money alone cannot increase the supply. And it was indeed a wrong policy, because no one realized that this could lead to a big problem for Indian economy because of excess money supply. Now come to second five-year plan. Second five-year plan, 1956 to 1961. It was completely given to industries, mainly heavy industries. Initially, this policy was introduced to provide the government some sort of financial support. Even to run the government needs money. To meet the day-to-day expenses, government needs money. And there, if there is some shortage, it can borrow from the RBI. It was not meant for financing the budget. It was not meant for financing the deficit. It was meant for providing temporary relief to the government, because it's just like to meet your day-to-day expenses, you need some pocket money. तो उसमें अगर थोड़ी कमी हो जाती है, you can take help from the parents again. So that was the purpose. Now come to second five-year plan. Second five-year plan, it was based on wrong assumption. What was that? Government wrongly assumed that whatever is physically possible is financially possible as well. I don't think you are able to get these things. Now, throughout the country, heavy industries, they were set up. Now, to set up heavy industries, we need many things. We need land, we need labor, we need machinery, we need raw material, we need technology, we need technician, we need XYZ. So they are called physical resources, and we need money. Money can be called financial resources. So to go for heavy industries throughout the country, we needed both the types of resources, physical resources and financial resources. Financial means money, and other than money, they will come under physical resources. So what was the wrong assumption? Government wrongly assumed that whatever is physically possible is financially possible as well. It means that if there is no problem of physical resources, then finance is not going to be a problem. यानी पैसे को छोड़ के बाकी किसी चीज की कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, समस्या नहीं है, तो मनी या पैसा प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट नहीं करेगा. Why government was so confident? Why government was so confident? कि if there is no issue with physical resources, money is not going to be a problem. Because RBI was ready with the machinery. RBI note छापने का मशीन लेके खड़ा था. Whatever money government can need, it can issue its security. RBI will print the notes given to the government. That exactly happened second half of second five-year plan. Acute shortage of money, and then this policy pick up the momentum. Massive notes were printed, given to the government. And why government is borrowing? To meet the expenditure, to get the target of growth rate. Money supply started increasing. And remember again, that money alone can increase the demand, but money alone cannot increase the supply. And iska jo impact hai, we started seeing after 1962. 1962, beginning of New India. Beginning of New India, it is called inflationary India. Because till 1962, India used to be a very cheap country. Go and ask your, not parents, it's grandparents, maybe old people. They will tell you how cheap India was. In 1962, college professors in India, they were getting a monthly salary of rupees 200. Only 200. School teachers, senior one, they were getting 150. Juniors, only 100. And they will tell you it was more than sufficient. More than sufficient. Till 1962, the price of 10 grams of gold remained below 900. The maximum price of 10 grams of gold in India in 1962 touched rupees 95 only. Rupees 95 only. तो आप लोग कुछ लेट नहीं हो गए? Don't you think you people become too late? Not to join the class. दुनिया आने में, didn't. Because after that, suddenly prices started increasing. Beginning of New India. Beginning of New India, not only it created a new India, but also another problem started. This excess money supply led to creating a new economy inside India, and that economy is called parallel economy. Have you heard this name? Not only the gap between demand supply kept on increasing, leading to more inflation, but it led to growth and the creation of a new economy that is called parallel economy, where everything is black. Black money का जो economy है, that is called parallel economy. And right now in India, there are two types of economy. One is called real economy, where everything is white, and another is called parallel economy, where everything is black. Black money, you know. Now these two are not two parallel lines, they can never meet. No. In the recent times, we have seen that growth of parallel economy is hurting the growth of real economy. It is hurting the common people. It is hurting the poor. It is hurting the middle class income group people. There is no official data, but I'm sure the growth of this parallel economy, growth rate of parallel economy is higher than those of real economy. Let me give you the best example. Let me ask basically, can you name that sector who can absorb maximum of black money? The sector who has got maximum absorption capacity of black money. Can you tell me the name of the sector? Yes, known to everyone. Abhishek, you are up to the point. It's real estate. Real estate. Now, real estate has got maximum potential, maximum absorption capacity. No other sector has the same potential. And because of that, see what has happened. There are three basic needs of human being. Three basic needs: roti, kapda, or makan. After 77 years of independence, रोटी का जुगाड़ हो गया, कपड़े का जुगाड़ भी हो गया. But even today, don't you think कि housing has remained a dream for majority of the Indians? Yes or no? Housing has remained, even today, dream for middle class and low income people, as if it comes under luxury. No. It is essential, but the problem is, because of the involvement of black money, prices have increased to such a high level that they have gone beyond the reach of the common people. So whatever problem we are facing right now, our past is responsible. Poor policy making. India is facing the problem of deficit since the beginning. And hardly 7 years ago, for the first time, India went for tax reform. Never in the past, Indian government took initiative to go for tax reform. Because for the government, this was the easiest way to get the money. Okay. An average 2 BHK home will cost 50 to 60 lakh in outer skirts of Lucknow. Yes, you are correct, Abhishek. UP is a city of, you can say, not city, a state of mafias. जिस हाउस की बात आप 50 to 60 लाख करो ना, if black money is removed from this sector, no one will buy at a price of rupee 10 lakh. No one will buy even at a price of rupees 10 lakh. Now the housing has gone beyond the reach of the common people. But new generation people, more talented, extraordinary, they have found the answer to this. They have solution of every problem. I know many people, new generation people, they have the money in their pocket, they can buy, but they don't buy a house because they think that buying a house, it is the worst decision of your life, and the logical argument they give, they are absolutely dead right. तो हर एक चीज का solution जो है ना, new generation people has found. And new generation people, they are 100% correct कि why purchasing a house should be avoided. They are the worst decision of your life, isn't it? So what is their argument logic? So I will let it know somewhere when you ask question, okay? So coming to now, beginning of New India, now come to third five-year plan. Third five-year plan, 1961 to 1966. 5 years, those years were not good for India. And during the third five-year plan, whatever expenditure took place, more than 20% contribution came through this policy. Third five-year plan, 1961 to 1966. In those 5 years, whatever money was spent by the government, contribution of this deficit financing was more than 20%. It's a very low or very high. Very low or very high. More than 20% came from this policy because for the government, it was the easiest way to get the money. When RBI is ready with the machinery, then why to disturb the people? Why to go for tax reform? Just put the stamp, make the signature, give it to RBI. RBI will be issuing the note fresh currency. This policy continued. No one cared. It is going to ruin the Indian economy. Two major problems. The gap that was created between demand and supply. This gap we can see even today. And second, it led to the creation of a new economy that is called parallel economy. And parallel economy is growing at a very, very fast rate. It is hurting the real economy. It is hurting the masses of India. It is hurting the common people, hurting the poor people, hurting the middle class income group people. No one cared. Poor policy making in the past. This policy continued, and then in 1990, Indian economy collapsed. 1990, Indian economy collapsed, both on internal as well as how did it lead to a parallel economy? It's a very simple. Government of India, Abhishek, again, you are getting ready for civil service, okay? I know many students like you, when they were getting ready for civil services, they were finding the government policies very, very tough. It's a very difficult to remember this ICDS, this, that, okay? Because when policies or initiatives are taken by the government, it is funded. Government को fund करती है. So the benefit that should go to the real beneficiary is going into the pockets of bureaucrats and politicians. Tomorrow, if you become bureaucrat, it is your duty to put the benefits of the government policy into the pockets of the real beneficiary for whom measures were taken by the government. But where goes the money? Where goes the money? Do you think the entire money goes to the pockets of the real beneficiary? No. They go into the pockets of politicians and bureaucrats. So once you get a share of that, it is going to be, do you think we are going to report this to the government? Okay, this much money I have earned because of this policy initiative? No. And you are going to, you cannot deposit those money with the bank. घर में भी नहीं रह सकते हो. It's a risky. So where to invest the money? Where to invest the money? Where to keep the money? Okay. So definitely the best option. देखो gold, suppose कि अभिषेक gold में भी, but gold has certain limitation. Suppose कि you earn 100 crores and you decided to buy the gold. So where to keep that big stock of gold? It's a very risky. Okay. So the only option that is left is real estate. Real estate, sir, Vinimay and land. What is the meaning of the word Vinimay? Vinimay means, okay, land, I agree with you. Vinimay, but where? Okay, so real estate basically the safest. Okay, Benami, okay, Benami, okay. Abhi, Benami, I think. Don't think these things. Get ready for your examination. Okay, अभी से आप सोचने शुरू करो where to keep those money when I will earn being a bureaucrat. Anyway, many measures taken. Coming to now the main issue. This policy continued, then 1990 economy collapsed. India had to go for reform. India had to go for reform. And you know the meaning of the word reform. Reform means to give up the old policies completely and comes out with a new set of policies which are totally different from the old one. I repeat the sentence again. 1991, India went for reform. And meaning of reform is to give up the old policies completely and comes out with a new set of policies which are totally different from the old one. But by then, damage was done. So do you think in 91 reform, this policy should be given up? Yes or no? तब तक ये डैमेज कर चुका था. So reform stands for giving up the old policy completely. Okay, so most of the policies then, they were given up. They were given up. Okay, Manmohan Sahab, the finance minister, he thought about giving up this policy, but he could not. And for that, he cannot be blamed for that, because in that year, economic condition of government of India was so poor, all the deficits, they were at their alarmingly high level. Government left with no money. So Manmohan Sahab realized if suddenly this policy is given up, then from where money will come? So unless we find a new source of finance, this policy cannot be given up. Try to get my point. Because unnecessary, we should not blame Dr. Manmohan Singh, then the finance minister. He thought about giving up this policy. But he realized if suddenly this policy is given up, then from where money will come? So unless a new source of income or finance is created, this policy should continue. Do you think he was correct? Do you think he was correct? Yes. So this policy continued even after 1991. And that's why it is very, very surprising for many students that when reform is talking about giving up the old policies completely, then why this policy continued even after reform? But Dr. Singh came out with a new concept. Can you name that concept? That will replace this deficit financing sooner or later. So can you name that policy that is of 1991, started by Dr. Manmohan Singh? Anyone? You know the things. You know the things, but the problem is you lack connectivity. This policy continued even after 91, but Manmohan Sahab came out with a new concept. It is going to replace this policy of deficit financing, and no one is correct. No one is correct. So name of that policy, it was disinvestment policy. Disinvestment will replace. See, every concept, what we can see today, it is of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Whether it's a liberalization, privatization, globalization, disinvestment. He said that disinvestment will replace or can become a regular source of income for the government. So disinvestment concept was given by Dr. Manmohan Singh only. And that government, it was so serious about disinvestment that one separate ministry was constituted or created. One separate ministry was created, disinvestment ministry. And when you create a separate ministry, you need to appoint minister as well. So who was the person and who was the first and the last disinvestment minister of India? Because later on, that ministry was merged with finance ministry. So who was the first and the last disinvestment minister of India? Pehla or Aakhri? Can you name that person? Very knowledgeable person, very old, still alive, lives in Pune. Earlier he was editor of Indian Express. Prior to that, he worked with World Bank and IMF. And in your life, wherever you go for, some foreign writers who have written books on economy, so they have taken reference of his articles. He used to write articles in the world's leading newspaper and the magazine. His name is still alive. I hope he is from BJP only now. It's Mr. Arun Shari. Have you heard this name? Mr. Arun Shari. Arun is very simple. And Shari, Shouri. Mr. Arun Shari. So he was made the first and the last disinvestment minister. Because I said that later on that policy, that ministry was merged with Ministry of Finance. Okay, so this borrowing from RBI, it continued even after 91 reform. But it had to be given up. But in India, the problem is, every after 5 years, election is held. So then in 1997, NDA was in power and Yashwant Sinha was the finance minister. Then historic agreement took place between the government of India and the RBI, and this policy was scrapped. This policy was given up. It means now government of India cannot borrow from the RBI to finance the deficit, to finance the budget. It also means that this ad hoc treasury bill, it was scrapped. 1997. Now one more treasury bill is there, that is called regular treasury bill. It is still there, but it is not under public finance. It is under RBI monetary policy. So when I discuss the monetary policy, one of the instruments of monetary policy is called SLR, a statutory liquid ratio. SLR, have you heard this name? SLR, a statutory liquid ratio. So there it is being used by the RBI even today. This is something different. So this ad hoc treasury bill, it was given up. No, but borrowing from RBI, it had done the damage. So this policy was given up. Now to finance the budget, to finance the deficit financing, to finance the budget, to finance the deficits of the budget, Government of India cannot borrow from RBI. Cannot borrow from the RBI. I hope this point is clear, yes or no? This is clear, yes or no? Okay. Now, how to remember? See, how to remember the things? I'm going to give you some idea. Some idea? In the past, we worked on 5-year plans. 5-year plan. Right now, I'm not discussing 5-year plans, only some reference. Now, the 7th 5-year plan, its timing was 1985 to 1990. 7th 5-year plan, its timing was 1985 to 1990. And when 7th 5-year plan came to an end, economy collapsed. Economy collapsed. Yeah. So government realized that no way we can come out with new 5-year plan. So then Government of India decided to take annual holiday of 2 days. Plan holidays were declared. Planning se chutti. Firstly, we will go with structural reform. पहले में रिफॉर्म करेंगे, देन मतलब कि ट्रेन पटरी से उतर चुकी है, तो पहले उठा के उसको पटरी पे रखेंगे, देन वी विल स्टार्ट द इंजन. Okay, so then plan holiday of 2 years were declared, and that's why you can see the timing of 8th 5-year plan. It is 1992 to 1997. There is a gap of 2 years. 1990, 31st of March, 7th 5-year plan came to an end. But 8th 5-year plan started 2 years later. So 2 साल फिर क्या हुआ? Plan holiday. During these 2 years, India went for a structural reform. I hope you are getting my point. A structural reform. Is that clear? Yes or no? Is that clear? India went for a structural reform. FDI, FPI, LPG model, these are, we have discussed already. Okay. And when 7th 5-year plan came to an end, we gave up the policy of deficit financing. Deficit financing policy continued till 8th 5-year plan. This is the point, you have to note it down. Deficit financing policy continued till 8th 5-year plan. I hope this point is clear, yes or no? After that, it was over. Deficit financing policy continued till the end of the 8th 5-year plan. Okay? Now, one of the chapters of mains, it is mobilization of resources under various plans. इसका मतलब है कि जितने भी 5-year plan रहे हैं, तो what have been the sources of financing? यानी how they were financed. What were the sources of financing our various plans? Now, deficit financing has remained one of the major sources of financing the deficit, but it will come from which plan to which plan? Yes. One of the sources of financing of the deficit of India, various plan, in the past, it was deficit financing. तो ये किस से किस प्लान तक आएगा? 1st to 8. Yes, absolutely correct, Vivek. Deficit financing policy has remained one of the major sources of financing the deficit, financing the budget, 1st to 8. 9th onwards, it won't be coming. 9th onwards, it won't be coming. I hope you are getting this point. 9th onward, it won't be coming. Yes or no? 9th 5-year plan onwards, it won't be coming because this policy was discontinued, was given up at the end of 8th 5-year plan. Okay, can deficit financing policy be called one of the major finance sources of the government at present, means current? Can this be taken as financing the current budget of the government? No. Is no. Okay. Current sources of financing the budget, already we have discussed, okay, and we have to discuss in detail. So this is the point, you have to note it down, okay? Now come to 97. Deficit financing policy was given up. It means ad hoc treasury bill was scrapped, but doesn't mean that RBI no longer is going to remain the banker of the government. RBI is the banker of the government. It is still the banker of the government. And deficit financing policy was replaced by one new policy that is called wages and means advances, 1997. 1997, wages and means advances. Advances. It is still there. Deficit financing policy was replaced by ways and means advances, and this policy is still there. Now, there is a lot of confusion between this policy and that policy. Now, here you have to remember that RBI is still the banker to the government. There are many differences between this and that. Now, deficit financing policy, borrowing power of the government of India from the RBI, it was unlimited. Means government can borrow up to any extent. Now, ways and means advances, it is also in the nature of loan given to the government by the RBI, just like deficit financing. But this money, in the name of advances, this money cannot be used by the government to finance the budget and the deficit. This money cannot be used by the government as a sources of financing the budget or deficit. This money can be used by the government only to meet day-to-day expenses, to run the government. To run the government also, government needs money. For example, the month when Parliament session is on, so for 1 hour's running expense of Parliament, it comes to a few crores. Parliament का 1 घंटे का खर्चा जो है कुछ करोड़ों का आता है. Now our representatives, they meet, they form the policy, they discuss the things, they take the decision. So they have to be paid. Moreover, there are various types of bills, they have to be cleared. So to all this, even to maintain the administration, government needs money. Just like to meet your day-to-day expenses, you need pocket expenses. So agar for that, government lacks money, then it can take advances from the RBI. RBI will give them advances. Means ways and means advances. But only to meet day-to-day expenditure. To meet those expenses which are necessary to run the government. I hope you are getting my point. This money cannot be used as a measure of or source of financing the deficit, financing the budget. I hope this point is clear, yes or no. Then I will discuss point by point. Okay, so when this policy came, 1997, so lots of confusion was created among the students, among the people, कि both are seems to be alike, because in both the cases, government is taking loan from the RBI, that is correct. But see the differences. Loans under deficit financing policy, it was used as a big source of financing the budget and the deficit, you can say. But this money cannot be used to finance the budget. This money can be used to meet day-to-day expenses of the government. Second, under deficit financing, borrowing power of the government of India, it was unlimited. It can borrow up to any extent. But here, the borrowing power of the government, it is not unlimited. It is limited. And what is the limit? So the limit is decided by the RBI. By the RBI and on quarterly basis. Regarding RBI, everything is not available in the public domain. For example, next quarter will start from April to June. So then RBI may decide that in the next quarter, the limit fixed by the RBI, it is 6,000 crores. For example, 6,000 crores. If needed in the next quarter, government can borrow maximum up to 6,000 crores from the RBI, if needed. Now, during the quarter, when Parliament session is going to take place, this limit should be higher or lower. During the quarter, when Parliament session is going to be there, the limit has to be higher. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Now, when budget and survey comes, in survey, on every topic of your syllabus, you can see one complete chapter. One chapter, agriculture, industry, services, foreign trade, and one is banking. Now, banking section of economic survey seems to be very, very difficult to understand. People don't understand, that's why people don't teach. I will discuss, Gabra. So, yes, during the COVID-19 lockdown, everyone suffered. Everyone suffered, including government as well. So, measures were taken by the government of India to provide relief to the common people. Measures were taken by the RBI also to provide relief to the common people. And moreover, measures were taken by the RBI to provide relief to the government as well, being the banker of the government. So my question is, during lockdown, this limit under wage and means advances, it should have been increased by the RBI or reduced, yes? This limit should have been increased by the government, by the RBI. All you are absolutely fine. So that was the first point. That was the first point. Ki measures, relief measures or measures taken by the RBI. Okay. So first column was for the common people, for the government. And for the government, this was the first line. Increasing the limit under wage and means advances. And people fail to understand. Okay. So I don't think there should be any confusion between deficit financing and wage and means advances. Now, wage and means advances are still operational, but they are not our sources of financing the budget. I hope this point is clear, yes or no. Deficit financing was one of the major sources of financing the budget of the government. But now this one, wage and means advances, is still there. Here also, government is taking loan from the RBI, but it cannot be said to be one of the major sources of financing the budget. It cannot be used to finance the budget. Okay. So when this policy came, 97, at that time, Professor N. Rangarajan was the governor of RBI. N. Rangarajan, 1997. And even today, he is alive. He is from, I hope, Hyderabad. And he used to write articles for the newspaper Hindu. But his writing is very tough. I don't think many people, they are able to understand what he's trying to say. But those people who know the thing, they know the significance of that article. So then, 1997, so he was the RBI governor. So one of the university there in Hyderabad is Osmania University. Osmania University, you must have heard this name. Osmania University. So then he delivered a lecture there trying to differentiate between deficit financing and wage and means advances. So that lecture of around 6 pages, they are still available on internet. So just find that lecture, and he has made everything absolutely clear. Absolutely clear. I cannot give you the link. Reason is, मुझे मिल तो जाता है, लेकिन फिर गायब हो जाता है. I am not comfortable. I will try again today. I will try to get the link of the Google available there. So if anyone is getting, okay, so it can be shared. Moreover, the book I have suggested, where everything is mentioned regarding ways and means advances. So I hope this is clear. Now come to final conclusion. Deficit financing. Ultimately, it was given up, but it led to destruction of Indian economy. For such a big country to collapse, both on external as well as internal front, ये रात का खेल नहीं था. It was mainly because of set of poor policy making of the policy makers in the past. And this policy, one of them. Okay, so this policy was given up. It was scrapped way back in 1997. You got the meaning of the word deficit financing. You got the meaning of the word monetized deficit. Monetized deficit. When we discuss fiscal policy in detail later on, our government is borrowing heavily. Per day for this current year, in fact, you have given data, around 4,000 crores per day borrowing is more than 4,000 crores. Massive. And since this government has taken over the charge, it has become very, very aggressive regarding borrowing. पिछले 70 साल में जितनी बोरिंग हुई है, 60 साल में कह लो, अकेला उससे ज्यादा बोरिंग पिछले 10 साल में हुआ है. And borrowing continues. So people have some doubt that this debt policy may not be sustained in the long. Because some people, they fear that we may fall into debt trap. A situation, once you fall into that, it is simply impossible to recover from that. A situation when to return one loan, you will have to take another loan. In 1990, we were very lucky that we have Dr. Manmohan Singh. And single-handedly, he and Nasir Rao took Indian economy from that critical condition. But if tomorrow the same happens, I don't think this finance minister has the guts. Okay? In fact, capable. So yes, questions are coming. Some people, again, they are suggesting instead of massive borrowing, India can go for monetized deficit. Everything has two sides. Deficit of India, can it be monetized? This is the question I'm asking for you. Not fully, partly, subject to certain limitations. Can we monetize our deficit? This is the question I'm going to ask from future bureaucrats and the future of India. Maybe you are a part of our think tank. Okay. Chalo fir, before we can go for conclusion, or before I can go for the break, final question. Deficit financing. So one thing is clear, that whenever government is borrowing from the RBI, what will happen to money supply? Whenever government is borrowing from the RBI, what will happen to money supply? Money supply is going to increase. And regarding money, you know, that money alone can be very, very constructive as well as very, very destructive. Money alone can increase the demand, but money alone cannot increase the supply. So meeting you after 10 minutes, a break. Inflation भी आएगा, आ चुका है. Welcome back. I am audible, I hope. Okay, but what about you people? Are you comfortable? Because now things are going to be very, very connecting. We cannot discuss the things in isolation. Always remember, your syllabus is Indian economy. So all the concepts you have to see with respect to Indian economy. So first we have concluded very popular policy of the past. It was borrowing from RBI. So this policy is no more. This policy was given up. But what was the conclusion? Ki whenever government of India is borrowing from the RBI, money supply is going to increase. Okay. Now come to second one. Borrowing from public, oblique market borrowing. So let us assume that ki I am the government and you are the people of India. I need 100 rupees. So for me, the first option was to borrow from the RBI. But when I borrow from the RBI, money supply definitely going to increase. Now, second option for the government, to borrow from the public. So here, government means myself, I need 100 rupees. So instead of borrowing from the RBI, I decided to borrow from the public. And this time, bonds of 100 rupees, they were issued to the common people. Already we have discussed the concept of bond. And people of India, they were requested by the government to buy the bond and give loan to the government so that budget can be financed. At present, it is one of the major sources of financing the budget of India, and contribution of market borrowing, it is coming around 27%. 27%. So see the complete sequence. Bonds of 100 rupees, they were issued to you people. You purchase the bond, means you give loan to the government. So money came from your pocket into the pockets of the government. So I means the government took loan from the public. Why loan was taken? To meet the expenditure, and the same money was spent by me. Money came to the market again. So my purpose is over. For me, it doesn't matter. I'm borrowing from RBI or borrowing from the public, because loan is loan. I have to return the money along with interest. But if government of India is borrowing from the public, remember, bonds of the government, they are very, very popular. And under different names, they have been issued over the years. Because when you are buying government bonds, you are simply giving loan to the government. Long-term loan, how safe your money is? 100%. Return is good. And to encourage the people, tax benefits are also allowed. And people of India, they trust the government bond. Okay, 100% safe. And already we have discussed that through discounting and rediscounting, flexibility has also been provided up to some extent. So, but question is, so for me, it doesn't matter whether I'm borrowing from the RBI or borrowing from the public. In both the cases, it is my liability to return the money back along with interest. But if I borrow from the public, borrow from the market, what about the money supply? This is my question from you. Money supply in the country will increase, decrease, or remaining same. Think carefully the proper sequence. Let me now again give the explanation. I need 100 rupees. So bonds of 100 rupees were issued by the government to you people. You purchase them. So from your pocket, money goes into the pockets of the government. Then government will be spending the money, and again money will come into the market. The government made the expenditure, but overall what happened to money supply? Money supply of the country, it increased, remaining same or decreased. Think carefully. Vivek, you are correct. Sweksha, you are also correct. Yes, correct. अब सबका correct आ रहा है. Money supply of the country will remain the same. It will not change. Because firstly, money will come from the pockets of the people into the pockets of the government. And when government is spending them, again money will come into the market. Here, no fresh currency is involved. Because fresh currency will be involved only when loans are taken from the RBI. So when loans are taken from the public through issue of bonds, money supply of the country is going to remain the same. Now let us make a comparison. Let us make a comparison. Now government has got two options. Borrow from the RBI, borrow from the public. But when the government is borrowing from the market, RBI, money supply is going to increase. But if it is borrowing from the public, money supply is going to remain the same. No change in money supply. So in your opinion, which one is better? Borrowing from RBI or borrowing from market? Yes. In your opinion, which one is better? Borrowing from RBI or borrowing from the market? The Gaurav has mentioned borrowing from market. Yes, Sweksha, your answer is same, borrowing from market. Borrowing from market, okay, Ujjwal is correct. Okay, you are correct. You are correct here. Because when government of India is borrowing from the market, money supply is going to remain the same. That's fine. But you are correct only because you have seen only one of the side. That is called positive side. Everything has two sides, positive and negative. Since borrowing from market, nowadays, it is one of the major sources of financing the budget of the government. Budget for the current year, it is 48.21 lakh crore size. And out of that, it will be financed through market borrowing around 27%. 27% of 48 lakh crore, I hope it will be maybe 13 lakh crore, maybe 14 lakh crore. You can tell me the amount. 27% of 48.21 lakh crore. This is the budget size. And through market borrowing, it will be financed up to 27%. So what is the exact amount of this? 27% of 48.21 lakh crore. Anyone using your calculator? Maybe mobile se bata sakte ho? 27% of 48.21 lakh crore will come through market borrowing. It comes around, you are correct again, around 13 lakh crore. 13 point something 02. 13 lakh crore. 13 lakh crores of rupee, it will come through market borrowing. So don't you think it's a big amount? It's a big amount. And when it is divided by 365, so per day borrowing will come around 4,000 crore. Per day borrowing, it is more than 4,000 crores. It means the present policy of the government, it has become very, very aggressive regarding public borrowing. That's why people are apprehensive. कुछ लोग घबराए हुए हैं. Can this debt policy, aggressive debt policy, be sustained in the long term? Or there is a threat that India, like many other countries, may fall into debt trap? So we have to discuss this borrowing policy of the government in detail. In detail. Because it has a link with many sections of your syllabus. So positive side is very good. You have already told me that when government goes for market borrowing, money supply in the country is going to remain the same. That's fine. But now let us say its application, it has many implications for the Indian economy. And when I'm discussing whatever I'm going to discuss, yes, there are many things you can find related to this in the coming budget and survey. Because the problem is people don't analyze. They keep on giving you information, but that is not sufficient. Okay, let me now start from zero. Borrowing from RBI is a part of monetary policy. Borrowing from the market is a part of fiscal policy. I repeat the sentence again. Borrowing from RBI is a part of monetary policy. Borrowing from the RBI market is a part of fiscal policy. And these two have a link with the next chapter, that is called inflation. We cannot discuss things in separation. We have to see its application. Both the things, they have the link with the new chapter, that is called inflation. And how do you study inflation? How the inflation topic is being taught? Inflation thereof so many times. This, that, crawling, creeping, that's all. This way you cannot qualify class 4th examination, you can say. So now inflation. Both have a link with inflation and other issues as well. Both have a link with the external sector, FDI as well as FPI. A time will come, at the same time, I will be discussing 5 to 6 chapters, connecting everything. Are you ready for that? And here, your caliber will be checked. मैं भी देखूंगा कहां तक आप जा सकते हो. But I'm sure you people are extraordinary. Okay. Inflation, it is a state where prices of goods and services, they are increasing. Inflation, they are of various types. One I have discussed while discussing the share market, a speculative inflation. Prices, they increase only because people are speculating. But here, for these two topics, for fiscal policy, let us classify inflation under two heads. First is called demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation. And the second is called cost push inflation. Apart from that, other inflations also, they are there, like structural inflation. So those will be discussed while discussing the chapter of inflation. Now, demand pull and cost push. First is called demand pull. Means demand is being pulled up. One force is there that is pulling the demand in an upward direction, and demand leaving the supply behind, demand is being pulled up, leading to creating gap between demand and supply. So what will happen then? You will have inflation. Demand pull inflation is mainly because of mismatch between demand and supply. Provided demand is more than supply, one force is there that is pulling up the demand, जो demand को ऊपर खींच रहा है, and demand leaving the supply, demand is on the higher side, creating gap between demand and supply, leading to inflation. Okay, so final line, demand pull inflation, it is because of the mismatch between demand and supply, provided demand is more than supply. What is the main reason behind that? Anyone? What is the main reason behind demand pull inflation, in your opinion? Conclusion, I have told you that demand pull inflation is mainly because of mismatch between demand and supply. Yes, the main reason behind that, it is basically excess money supply. Excess money supply. Regarding money, so many times I have told you that money can be very, very constructive as well as very, very destructive. Money alone can increase the demand, but money alone cannot increase the supply. Let us assume this case, कि suppose कि demand supply both are equal. Economy is in balance, but suddenly wrong policy of the government came. RBI started printing the notes and distributing among the people, and every individual's account was credited by rupees 15 lakh, as claimed by the present government prior to 2014 election. But when every Indian is getting 15 lakh rupee, do you think this balance between demand and supply remain in balance? Or the balance will be disturbed? balance definitely is going to be disturbed. Demand is suddenly going to go up. Okay, let us see the case. Right now, if all among you is getting message from your banker, your account is credited by rupees 15 lakh. So what is going to be your first reaction? Yes. What is going to be your first reaction? The first reaction will be, you will request me to, sir, stop the class. Sir, आज रहने दीजिए, ठीक है, कल से हम लोग पढ़ेंगे. And immediately you will go to the market, or maybe online you will be busy buying the product. Yes. So excess money supply. Now India has seen, still we are seeing the feature of this inflation. And recently we have discussed the popular policy like deficit financing. Because of that, excess money came to the market and leading to demand pull inflation. The gap that was created during the early 60s, that gap we can see even today. 2016, India went for demonetization. But in the year 2015, are we really the data? We are facing the problem of excess money supply. Excess money supply there in the country, and as per the estimates of the RBI, it is in between 75 to 85 billion US dollar. 75 to 85 billion dollar. Even we go for average $80 billion. So in terms of rupee, it will come around 7 lakh rupee. 7 lakh rupee. 2015. In the Indian market, there is an excess money supply worth 7 lakh crore. But suddenly next year we saw demonetization came and 83% of the money supply of India, it was gone. And then we saw the situation of less money supply. Excess money supply is also harmful. Less money supply also, it is also harmful. So to maintain the ideal money supply, to have a balance between demand supply, it is one of the objectives of monetary policy as well. So deficit financing policy, final line, led to creating gap between demand and supply. So demand pull inflation, one of the main reason, it is excess money supply. Other reason, growing population. If population is increasing, definitely demand is going to be on the rise. And if supply is not responding, then you will again have the situation of demand pull inflation. But it is not the main factor. Some people, they believe that the increase in population is the main factor. That is wrong. Main factor is the excess money supply. So can you see the element of demand pull inflation in India? क्या भारत में डिमांड पुल इन्फ्लेशन के लक्षण आपको मिलेंगे, हाँ या ना? This is my question. Yes, okay. Which policy? So demand pull inflation. Now, deficit financing policy led to creating inflation in India, and that inflation can be seen or can be called demand pull inflation. I hope that all you people are comfortable. All you people are comfortable. Okay. If you have any doubt, please ask. Now come to the second one. Cost push. My question from you, if there is a mismatch between demand supply, certainly it will lead to inflation. But question is it possible that there is no mismatch between demand supply? There is no mismatch between demand supply. Still, prices are increasing. Is it possible? Yes or no? Let me ask again the same question. If there is a mismatch between demand supply, provided Demand is more than supply. Definitely there will be inflation. But question is it possible that there is no mismatch between demand and supply? No mismatch between demand and supply. Still, prices are increasing. Is it possible? Yes or no? I hope you are getting the question. Okay. Gaurav says no. Okay. बहुत लोग कह रहे हैं yes. Okay. So correct answer is yes. It is possible. It is possible only because production cost is increasing. And that is called cost push. Cost means cost of production. If production cost is increasing, it will force the producer to sell the product at a higher price to cover the increasing cost. Okay, prices are going to increase, leading to inflation. Now this cost plus inflation, I have to discuss in detail. In detail. And I'm going to take the same example from where I started taking my classes, that of 8 rupees. That of 8 rupees. But before coming to that, I hope on Saturday, one debate is there. Now those people who are of our institution, there are many candidates who are going to take up the UPSC interview. So we are helping them to get ready in the form of mock interview, and the topics are given. So Saturday is my topic. I hope 11 o'clock you will notify it. Okay. 5 trillion economy. Okay. So they are big people because they are qualified people. And then okay, I will give my opinion. So that will also help you. यही आप पूछ रहे सर आप कुछ पढ़ाइए. So and then I will give the clue. I will discuss those things, those measures which need to be taken to make Indian economy $5 trillion economy. So don't miss the classes. So let us now discuss cost plus inflation detail. Okay, broadly, there are 4 factors of production. Land, for that, we are paying rent. To the labor, we are paying wages. For capital, we are paying interest. Interest. To the entrepreneur, we are paying profits. We are paying profits. Okay. Suppose that during the year, only one pen was produced. And in making this pen, these 4 factors of production, they were used and they were paid 2 rupees each. Now the product is ready. So what is the cost of the product? 8 rupees. 8 rupees. This is known to be factor cost. Factor cost. So when the pen is being removed from the factory gate, it will be costing rupee 8. But when it is sold in the market, means reaching finally its destination, then in between, who will come? Government. Imposing tax of rupee 10, making market price rupees 10. So market price will be 10. It is the price at which it will be sold to the consumer. For the consumer, it is going to be the price. Now, inflation is always calculated at market price. Because the price we people, we have to pay. Is that clear now? So yes, so price of this pen is 10. Now, if tomorrow to buy this pen, if you need to pay rupees 15, so then you can say, pen महंगा हो गया. Yes, inflation is there. Now see this board. This 10 is basically inclusive of these 5. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Rent, wages, interest, profit, and tax. Now these 5, can they be called integral part of our cost of production? Can the rent, wages, interest, profit, and taxation, can they be called integral part of the price we are going to pay? Yes. If any of the 5 increases, if any of the 5 increases, what will happen to this market price and inflation? If any of the 5 increases, what will happen to the market price? So market price is definitely going to increase, leading to cost plus inflation. Now your syllabus says Indian economy. Every concept you have to see with respect to Indian economy. Let us see one by one. By taking simple examples, we have to understand. Firstly, come to rent. Rent. Now, those people, those producers who are working on rented premises, किराए के पे करते हैं. So always there is a rent agreement between the landlord and the tenant. And if you see rent agreement, so one of the clause is universal throughout the country, कि every after 11 months, rent will be increased by 10%. Yes. Dharma Teja. You have already written. Every after 11 months, rent will be increased by 10%. I hope you know the things. So if the rent is increased by 10%, what will happen to cost of production? If you have to pay at a higher rate, so production cost is going to increase, so it will lead to increase in price. Okay? So with respect to the economy, this is also taking place. Okay, so one by one, so is it true in case of Indian economy? Yes or no? क्या भारत में ऐसा होता है कि cost plus inflation is because of increasing burden of rent? Yes. Okay. So the point that is covered, I'm going to remove. इसको हमने पढ़ लिया. Now the wage rate. Wage rate, if it is increasing, if the workers are being paid at a higher rate, what will happen to cost of production? If the workers, they are being paid at a high rate, what will happen to cost of production? Cost of production is going to increase. Cost of production, it is going to increase. And when production cost is increasing, it will lead to cost plus inflation. Okay, regarding wage rate, you can see that over the years, prices, they have increased. Now, the worst sufferer because of inflation is called wage earners. Those people whose income is fixed, particularly low income group people like workers. So they may be getting the same amount of salary or maybe wages, but because of inflation, purchasing power of their money has come down. Then their real wages has decreased. To compensate for the losses, time to time you can see government is increasing their wage rate. Manrega, wage rate was revised. Wage rate under Manrega, it was increased. Under Minimum Wages Act, for a duty of 8 hours, minimum wage rate has been fixed. And recently, it was almost double. Earlier, the manual workers, they were to be paid 287 for 8 hours of duty. Now it has been increased to more than 550. You cannot pay less than this, otherwise it is punishable. So wage rate, if it is increasing, what about the cost of production? What about the cost of production? Production cost is going to increase, leading to cost plus inflation. Another reason behind cost plus inflation is that raw material is getting costly. Raw material getting costly, whether because of domestic reason or maybe global reason. If the crude oil prices increase, what will happen? If the crude oil prices, they increase because of global reason, the petroleum product in India, they will be costly. And when petrol and diesel is costly, it is going to inflate the economy. Your transportation cost is going to increase. Known to everyone, petrol, diesel महंगा, तो सब कुछ महंगा. Everything. Okay. Domestic factor. Suppose that there is a short supply of onion, short supply of sugarcane. So what will happen to their prices? Because of increasing temperature, Suppose that productivity of some crop has decreased. So definitely it will be in short supply. So prices are going to increase. So raw material is getting costly. So I said, because of domestic reason, because of global reason as well. So that will lead to cost plus inflation. Wage rate is also one of them. Wage rate. Now come to this one. Firstly, I will go for profit. If the producers, they increase the profit margin, what will happen to the price? If the producers, manufacturers, they increase the profit margin, what will happen to the price? Price is going to increase, definitely. And in India, this is a common practice among the business people. Once you have the goodwill in the market, once you have the goodwill in the market, the first thing they do, they increase the profit margin, leading to high prices. Yes. And it's a poor Indians, because Indian people, they are mentally very, very poor. Government of India is talking about poverty rate. So that is physical poverty. May have come down to 12%. That is not the major issue for India. India's major problem is mental poverty rate. It is more than 99%. Because Indian people, when they are paying more for anything, if they are paying at a high rate, they link it with their status symbol. जब वो ज्यादा महंगा चीज खरीदते हैं तो दे फील वेरी प्राउड कि नाउ मैं भी कुछ हो गया हूं. Yes, they directly link it with their status symbol. Poor Indian mentality. Yes. If a rickshaw puller is asking 10 rupees more, instead of 20, he demanded 25, maybe 30, you become angry. आप नाराज हो जाते हो, गुस्सा करते हो, थप्पड़ भी लगा देते हो. But last time, when you visited some restaurant with your family, maybe friends, you paid 600 rupees bill, and today you are paying rupee 900. You feel highly obliged. You feel very proud. Okay. कि now मैं भी कुछ हो गया हूं. Not only you will take the snap there, it will be posted on the social media. और आपके colleague भी हैं, they will appreciate, isn't it? This is the problem. And these business classes people, they are taking benefit of that. Massive profit margin. Without profit, business cannot be done. But it has to be, there has to be some limit. Profit margin, you cannot imagine. Particularly prices of drugs. Yes, young generation, they have to change this mentality. Drugs, medicine की मैं बात कर रहा हूं. The strip of 10 medicine, which is being sold at a price of 28, 29, its production cost is less than 1 rupee. Less than 1 rupee. No control with that. And people are very proud about that. Under no act, these people can be found guilty of misconduct. They can charge whatever they want. It is up to the consumer whether they decide whether to buy or not. Okay, this is a problem. Okay, during recently, Deepavali festival took place. I don't know wherever you belong to, this culture is there or not. In Delhi, I have seen that people before Deepavali, they used to share the gift. Gift share करते हैं. They go to the market, पूरे गाड़ी भर gift खरीद के ले आते हैं and sharing among the friend circle. I don't know whether these culture there in your city or not. You know those things. Gaurav said no. Swiksha said yes. Okay, ये culture है. Okay, I don't like those things. But this year, I got one gift. One gift is very popular. Earlier, only rich people, they were involved. Now the middle class income group people, they are very active. And they think that they are able to raise their level. I got one of the gift, very famous. You must have seen, that is called Celebration of Nestle. देखा है वो celebration का chocolate का डब्बा होता है. Normally a blue color. Okay. I saw the price, MRP 150. Okay. MRP 150. I opened the packet. One tray was there containing chocolates of various size. On every chocolate packet, MRP was written. So when I added MRP of all the chocolates, okay, it came to rupees 100, and that was also inclusive of massive profit. And only for packing, they are charging 50 rupee. And we are buying. We are buying. Because buying those things, sharing the gift, is a matter of pride for Indian people. Best example of mental poverty. These are the problems. So profit margin is very high. Very, very high. And the best thing is, once you have the goodwill, एक बार मार्केट में आपका नाम हो गया, then the first thing these companies do, they increase their profit margin. In the recent times, I keep on analyzing the price trend. In the recent times, medicinal plants, medicines, they have become very popular. One of the companies, Dabur, another is Himalaya, you know. The Himalaya is making one of the product. It is called Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha tablets. Patanjali also. I'm talking about Himalayas Ashwagandha. Tablets are there. So 4 months ago, one, you can say, dabba of this side is there, white color. Okay. So MRP written was 165. Okay. Then next month I saw it increased to 200. Increased to 200. Increased by 20%. And next month again, it was increased to 220. Again by 10%. People are buying. People are buying and they are ready to pay the cost. So in India, once established properly, keep on increasing price. That's correct. आप भी जाते हो ना कुछ खरीदते हो, कुछ लोकल कंपनी का दिखाता है, यू से कंपनी का चाहिए. अरे all are from companies. Some may be known, some may be unknown. So try to be a good customer. Don't get very much affected only because prices are high. Okay. So in India, this is also one of the major reasons behind cost plus inflation. Do you agree with me? Yes or no? And government of India has no control over this monopoly profit. No act is there in India under that these people can be found guilty of misconduct. In 1969, one act came. Mrs. Gandhi was the Prime Minister. So one act was implemented in India. It was MRTP Act. Monopoly and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. Under that, the charging of excess profit, yes, it will be coming under monopoly practices, and for that, you can be punished. But gradually, that act was dissolved. And in 2003, that act was abolished. And it was replaced by a new act that is called Succession Act. Under that, there is no such provision. No such provision. So, ये तो हाल है इनका. Government has no. At least there are few things over the prices of that. Government should have proper control, like food prices, like drugs, means medicine prices. Yes, in Delhi, doctors also, they will prescribe those medicines which are very costly. Of the same ingredients, cheap medicines are available, but they are never going to be referred by the doctors. They will refer only those things which are very costly. In Delhi, big gurudwaras are there. And our Sikh brothers and sisters, they are known for their welfare. Yes, one gurudwara is there near Connaught Place, Bangla Sahib. So there they have opened one dispensary. Dispensary where things are being sold at a very, very low rate, very low price. The medicine of 10 strips, whose market price at a chemist shop, it is 128. There you can get it for rupees 18 only. Rupees 18 only. One another Gurudwara there, where they have made dialysis completely free. Free of cost, dialysis will be taking place. There you cannot find any cash counter. Okay. So this is the problem. Okay. We have not seen the governance. We have not seen the governance. Whosoever came to the power, all they are talking about, poor, poor and poor. All the facilities, they are meant for the poor. Nothing is wrong, but the real victim, they are not the poor, they are those people who belong to middle class income group people. Yes, COVID-19 lockdown, they hurt very badly the middle class income group people, not the ultra rich or maybe very poor. तो ये सब चीजें हैं, क्या कहोगे? तो this is one of the reason in India behind cautious inflation. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. Now two things are left. Do you think government of India's taxation policy, it is one of the factor behind high inflation? Because whenever we buy anything, whether goods or services, we need to pay GST. And the rate of GST is very high. Moreover, the global average rate of GST, it is between 6 to 7%, but India is 12 to 13%, almost double. 28% GST rate, highest in the world. Moreover, after GST, all the services, they became costly by 3%. So in India, prices are very high. One of the main reasons is the taxation policy of the government. And I have unable to understand that those things which are necessary for everyone, like insurance policy, there also GST is 18%, as if it comes under luxury. This is the thinking of the policy makers of the present government, particularly our finance minister. Same was criticized by other ministers. Let us bring essential commodities, life-saving drugs. Normally they are imported. Just go and check tax rate on them. It's a very, very high. आज इंडिया में लोग ऊपर वाले से दुआ करते हैं, ऊपर बुला लो लेकिन बीमार मत करो. This is what we have achieved over a period of 77 years. Because of these kale gore bureaucrats and politicians. So government is one of the biggest culprit behind high inflation. I hope you are agree with me. Yes or no? Okay. So cautious inflation, fourth factor we have discussed. Now we come to this one, interest. Interest is said to be the cost of capital. Cost of capital. Now interest we are paying because we are using capital of someone else. This we have to discuss in detail. Interest, it is known by various names. It is also known to be cost of capital. It is also known to be debt service charge. And interest is an integral part of cost of production. Interest is an integral part of cost of production. Yes or no? Interest is an integral part of cost of production. Yes or no? Yes. Moreover, interest is the only factor which is common between fiscal policy of the government and the monetary policy of the RBI. I repeat the sentence again. Interest is the only factor which is common between the fiscal policy of the government of India and the monetary policy of the RBI. Earlier we have discussed that interest will be the main factor for you while deciding whether to go for debt or whether to go for equity. Yaad karo, only two options are there. When you start earning and decides investing, so interest will be the main factor. If the rate of interest is low in the market, go for equity. High, go for debt. Okay. Now, Government of India is working on growth theory. RBI is working on inflation theory. For growth, rate of interest should be low or high. For growth, rate of interest should be low or high. This is my question from you. Growth के लिए क्या जरूरी है? Rate of interest, it should be low. That's fine. So government of India is trying to bring the interest low so that more investment taking place and it leading to growth. But whenever rate of inflation is high, in order to control the inflation, what the RBI will do? If the rate of inflation is very high, to check the inflation, what RBI normally does? Increases the rates. ये rate क्या करती है? बढ़ाती है. So that definitely going to hurt the growth theory of the government. So this has been one of the major issue. Okay, so coming to now interest. Now interest is the cost of capital. And it is basically integral part of cost of production. If the interest is increasing, what will happen to cost plus inflation? Yes. If the rate of interest is increasing, what will happen to cost plus inflation? It is going to increase. It is going to increase. Now see the application. Because if you analyze previous year's questions of UPSC Prelims, in many questions, you can see interest. Maybe full question, maybe some of the options there, you can see that. Okay, now come to borrowing from RBI versus borrowing from market. Okay, you said and said correctly, that borrowing from market, it is better than those of borrowing from RBI. Because in case of borrowing from market, money supply is going to remain the same. But if we borrow from the RBI, money supply will increase, leading to demand for inflation. But again, I repeat, but if we borrow from the market, money supply is going to remain the same. So that's why it should be preferred. That's fine. But now say the negative side of market borrowing. Okay. Now interest is an integral part of cost of production. 1991, India went for reform. And over the years, we have seen that demand for domestic capital, it is on the rise. Demand for domestic capital, it has increased many times, but supply of domestic capital is not in the same proportion. Let me again repeat. Before that, one basic rule of economics, if demand for certain thing increases and the supply is not responding in the same proportion, so what will happen? Yes. If demand is increasing, but supply is not responding in the same proportion, so what will happen then? किसी चीज का डिमांड बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रहा है, but supply उससे तो definitely price बढ़ेगा. Yes, inflation is correct. Price of that thing is going to increase. Let us see the question. If demand for capital is increasing, but supply of capital is not in the same proportion, not responding, then what will happen? Demand for domestic capital, if it is increasing at a very fast rate, but supply of domestic capital is not in the same proportion, so then what will happen in the market? What will happen in the market? Listen to the question again. Demand for domestic capital, it is increasing at a very, very fast rate. But supply is not responding in the same proportion. So then what will happen? Don't go to Vivek growth. The answer I would need. अभी तो आपने सही आंसर दिया था. अरे price of capital is called interest. This is the clue I can give you. Earlier you said correctly when I asked that thing, that demand is increasing, but supply is not responding. So what will happen? You said prices are going to increase. That was correct answer. So here I'm asking, the product here is capital. Product here is capital. Now, Vivek, you are up to the point. Product is capital. Demand for domestic capital, it is increasing. But supply is not responding in the same proportion. Then what will happen? Yes, okay. Interest rate will increase. Yes, correct, Vivek and Saksha. Interest rate क्या होगा? बढ़ जाएगा ना. Interest is the price of capital. I repeat again. Interest is basically what? Price of capital. The price you have to bear because you are using capital of someone else. So let me now conclude. Okay, all you know, presentation may be wrong, but intention is correct. Ki demand for domestic capital, if it is increasing, but supply is not responding in the same proportion, so what will happen? The rate of interest in the domestic market is going to increase. That is called price of capital will increase. I hope till here you are comfortable. Till here you are comfortable. Okay. The same was asked in UPSC Prelims 5 years ago. Same question came in UPSC Prelims 5 years ago. Question was exact language. I don't remember. Ki domestic demand for capital is increasing, but supply of capital is not in the same proportion. Then what will happen in the market? The correct answer was ki rate of interest is going to increase. The same question what I have discussed. Okay, now come to 91. Prior to 91, India used to be a different India. But after 91, what we saw, कि domestic capital's demand has increased manifold. And domestic capital is demanded by many people, many organizations. Companies are issuing shares. What they are looking for? Companies are issuing shares. IPO, maybe a PO. What they are looking for? They are demanding capital from we people. वो आपसे हमसे क्या कहते हैं कि मुझे आपका कैपिटल चाहिए. Mutual funds, they are issuing their units. What they are looking for? Ours capital. They are also demanding domestic capital. Yes, insurance companies, they have now increased and they are issuing their policies. What they are looking for? Insurance companies, they are looking for our capital. And not only that, more and more people, they are tilted towards starting some business. So when you decide to start some business, you need capital. So you approach banker asking for loan. What you are looking for? You are also demanding domestic capital. So demand for domestic capital over the years, since 1991, it has increased manifold. Manifold, but supply of domestic capital cannot be taking place in the same proportion. Now this has a link with monetary policy. Okay, because this is the common question. Ki, what is the basis of printing the notes by the RBI? On what basis notes are printed by the RBI? RBI cannot print the notes according to the demand. So the conclusion is कि in the last 33 to 34 years, demand for domestic capital, it has remained very, very high. But supply is very low, or as compared to demand, supply is low. So overall, the result is rate of interest in the Indian market is still very, very high. Rate of interest is still very, very high. I hope this point is clear, yes or no? The rate of interest in the Indian market is still very, very high. Okay. It's all about demand supply. Okay. So why domestic capital? It is very costly. The reason I gave you, demand for domestic capital is very high, but supply is very low. And so already demand pressure on domestic capital is very high. Domestic capital, let me write. Domestic capital, demand pressure is very high. Demand is very high. Demand pressure is very high. Is high, leading to high interest, leading to high interest. Okay. And in this situation, see the board again, domestic capital, demand pressure is already very high, leading to high interest rate inside Indian market. And in this situation, if government decides to go for market borrowing, and that has been the policy, now again, the biggest beggar is looking for domestic capital. And for this year, you have already told me that demand for domestic capital through issue of bond from government side, it is going to be 13 lakh crore. This much of domestic capital demand is going to come from government side. Because when government is issuing bond, it is also looking for capital. Now, already demand is very high, leading to high rate of interest. And in this condition, if government goes for market borrowing, means now demand for domestic capital, अरे सरकार भी तो हमसे ही पैसा मांग रहा है कि buy my bond. So then what will happen to this demand pressure, which is already very, very high? When government goes for market borrowing, what will happen to this domestic demand for capital? Drastically increase. So what will happen to this? What will happen to this interest? What will happen to this interest? Interest is bound to increase. And when interest is increasing, what will happen? When it is increasing, then you will have which inflation? You will have this inflation. You will have this inflation. See this carefully. It's a very conceptual, or एक चीज मैं बता दूं, once in a lifetime you are getting these things. No one is teaching those things. People are teaching those things which have nothing to do with civil services. Those things which you can do yourself. Anyway, see the case again. Interest is an integral part of cost of production. If the rate of interest increases, production cost will increase, leading to cost plus inflation. Now, domestic capital in India is a damn costly even today. Reason is demand for domestic capital is very high, but supply is not in the same proportion. So getting loan in the Indian market is so costly. Rate of interest is very high. And in this situation, when government decides to go for market borrowing, and that is the policy, amount is clear, around 13 lakh crore. Per day, government's borrowing is more than 4,000 crores. It's a big amount. So when in this situation, when government goes for market borrowing, demand pressure will suddenly increase. And what will happen to then interest? Rate of interest, which is already very high, it is going to increase further. Okay. And when rate of interest is high, then it will lead to high cost of production, leading to cost push inflation. Leading to cost push inflation. I hope this point is clear, yes or no? So market borrowing will lead to cost push inflation, yes or no? This is the negative side of the policy of market borrowing. Negative side of the policy of market borrowing. देखो inflation तो होगा ही होगा. Whether you borrow from RBI or borrow from the market. If you borrow from the RBI, you will have demand pull inflation. But if you borrow from the market, you will have cost push inflation because of high rate of interest. I hope these things are clear, yes or no. Are you able to understand? Solution बाद में पूछना. गौरव, ठीक है. Are you able to understand, yes or no? If you have any doubt, please ask. Okay. So now come to borrowing. Now, borrowing from RBI. If Government of India is borrowing from the RBI, it will lead to demand pull inflation. But if government of India is borrowing from the market, it will lead to cost-push inflation. So my question is, which one is better? Borrowing from RBI or borrowing from market? Yes. Inflation तो होगा ही होगा. Which one is better? All these things are called analysis. Unless you develop this skill, you cannot qualify. This is the guarantee I can give you. Do you think, have you seen the question? In your opinion, which one is better? Borrowing from RBI or borrowing from the market? Inflation will be there. Doesn't matter, you borrow from RBI or borrow from the market. Okay. Now, some people, they have seen, mostly you have written, borrowing from market. तो इंडियंस के बारे में एक बड़ी खूबी होती है कि इंडियंस बड़े बेशर्म होते हैं. Borrowing seems to be very good. No. Let me ask another question. Like the government, I'm also in deficit. Like the government, I'm also in deficit. So for me, there are two options. First is to borrow from this side, left side neighbor, or borrow from right side neighbor. Which one is better? बाएं वाले पड़ोसी से उधार लेना बेहतर होगा या दाएं वाले पड़ोसी से? Which one is better for me? अब ऐसे भी छात्र हैं जो कहते हैं कि सर जो वापस ना मांगे उससे लीजिए. That is not the correct answer. No one. If I borrow, it simply means my own incomes are not sufficient. My own incomes are not sufficient. Doesn't matter from whom I'm borrowing. So you ask the question, Gaurav, where is the solution? To make the tax system more productive, to generate more revenue through taxation, are we capable? We are more than capable. Evasion of taxes, itna zyada, you cannot imagine. If the tax evasion, make strict rules. Those people who are guilty of evading taxes, they should be punished very soon. We should cut the wasteful expenditure also. That's fine. Okay, but better to go for tax reform. Better to take rules. Government is very powerful. And nowadays, last year one chapter came in the survey, formalization of Indian economy. Nowadays, mostly people are paying using UPI. So when you are making payment using UPI through UPI, it means payment is going through bank. Payment bank through रहा है. तो government with the help of technology, it can improve the situation. Evasion of taxation, massive. Even in Delhi, if you go to local market to buy anything, yes, maybe anything. Suppose you are constructing your own house. घर बनाने के लिए आपको material चाहिए. No one is going to accept online payment. वो चाय वाले accept कर लेते हैं. They are better. They will tell you, okay, we will not give you okay, material if you make payment online. You will have to pay in cash. Cash means evasion of taxes. Maximum you can pay 20%. For that, we will give you the bill. But on that, you will have to pay GST. It's a pathetic condition there. And in a Sahar like Delhi, it's a very common. I don't know about your city. Okay. So better to go for generating more tax revenue. Government can be very, very powerful thing. But we have never seen governance. दो चार को अगर 10 दिन में सजा देके टांग दो, तब ऐसे ही जो है लोग समझ जाएंगे. Anyway, those people who are responsible to generate more tax revenue for the government, like taxation people, like professionals, they are the real culprits. वो भी पैसे कमाने में लगे हुए हैं. People working in the taxation department, class 4th employees, they have become crorepati. So leave that again. So no one is better. Never say that market borrowing is better than borrowing from RBI. Inflation will be there. Let me now conclude. If the government of India is borrowing from the RBI, it will lead to demand pull inflation. But if it is borrowing from the market, it will lead to cost push inflation. I hope this point is clear, yes or no. Then only I can move forward. Yes. Then it will lead to cost push inflation. That's fine. Okay. Should I raise my level? मैं एक level और ऊपर जाऊं? Are you able to grab the things? Let us see. Now, if we discuss strictly, now borrowing from borrowing from market, it is more dangerous than borrowing from RBI. Let us see why. Because when government goes for market borrowing, it will lead to increase in the rate of interest. Okay? But this rate of interest increase is a good for the private investors or bad for private investors. When government goes for market borrowing, demand pressure for domestic capital will be very high. So rate of interest will be high. Getting loan from the banks, etc., it will be costly. So it's a good for the private investors or bad for private investors. It's a bad for private investors. Government ko chhod do, who is getting the money. For rest of the investors, getting loan inside India will be costly. It is going to be very, very bad. Try to get my point. When government is going for market borrowing, government will get the money, but it will lead to increase in rate of interest. Okay? Means getting capital inside India, will be costly, yes or no? Getting loan inside India will be costly. So government को छोड़ के बाकी जितने भी investor हैं, I'm talking about you. You went to the bank asking for a home loan. Bank said it has become costly. So what about the private investment? Private investment के लिए is good or bad? Market borrowing. Because whenever government goes for market borrowing, it will lead to increase in rate of interest in the Indian market. So it's a very bad for private investors. And we are working on PPP model. It's a good for PPP model or bad for PPP model. It will encourage private investment or discourage private investment. This market borrowing of the government, it will discourage. And that's why technically it is called, it may lead to crowding out effect. Crowding out effect. This is called crowding out effect. Crowd, they are going to be out of the field. इसको ऐसे समझो. Suppose I am the government and you people are private investors. Okay? And in 91, government went for PPP model. And now what I want कि crowd in हो. मतलब आप भी साथ आए with your investment और साथ मिलकर के हम लोग काम करें. Let the crowd in. Crowd stands for private investors. Okay? But because government is borrowing from the market on regular basis, leading to high rate of interest, what the crowd, they will do? They will be leaving the field. Right now, rate of interest is very high. We are not going to invest at this rate. It will lead to crowding out effect. The private players, they will leave the field. I hope this point is clear, yes or no? Crowd will leave the field. Private players, they may not be participating. This point is clear, yes or no? Okay. But Sitaraman said, no, this high market borrowing will lead to crowd in effect. Just opposite of crowding out is the concept of crowding in. Let the crowd, spelling sahi kalana. I hope ki crowding in effect. Okay, make the correction itself. Crowd in. Sitaraman said that this market borrowing policy is essential for crowding in. Crowd will come, they will participate only when government goes for market borrowing. Let us see her argument. Okay, now in order to increase the public investment, government needs money. And unless the homework is done by the government in the name of promoting infrastructure, law and order, XYZ, private players, they are not going to come. ये हमने पहले पढ़ा था कि 3 tier. The first role is of the government, then the drivers of the country, producer, and then it's the consumers, means we people. Do you remember those things? So from the front, it's the government who will have to lead. And suppose one of the state least backward is the state of Bihar. Now Bihar should develop. So who will have to lead from the front? So government of Bihar along with the central government. Firstly, government of Bihar will have to make the environment conducive for investment. It will have to make arrangement of everything. And after that, investors, private investors, they go to the state to set up the industry. So what are those things Bihar government will have to make ready? Like law and order, infrastructure. So these things, they are called public expenditure. Exactly, it was done by UP government in the last 7 to 8 years. Now, big companies, they have started setting up their industry in UP. So Sitaraman says that unless we increase public expenditure, by increasing public expenditure, we have to make the environment, for example, infrastructure, law and order, etc. So these are called public expenditure. So for these things, we need to borrow. We will have to increase public expenditure, and then only crowd they are going to be in. जब तक government अपना homework नहीं करेगी, private investors, they are not going to come. So for crowding in effect, public expenditure has to increase, and for that, government will have to go for market borrowing. So in fact, through market borrowing, we are trying to promote our infrastructure so that crowding in effect takes place. Yeah. So I hope ki you are comfortable here as well. Because we people say it will lead to market borrowing, will lead to crowding out. Sitaraman says, for crowding in, it is necessary. I hope you are getting my point, yes or no? Are you getting this point? For crowding, are you getting? Both have their own argument. Are you comfortable here, yes or no? Now, who seems to be more correct in the present scenario? Who seems to be more correct at the present scenario? Ki high public expenditure, high market borrowing. Do you think it is necessary for crowding in? Do you think it is necessary for crowding in? Yes. Okay. So in the present context, Sitaraman ji may be correct, because when we discuss banking, other dimension also they will come. Okay. But when we are going for excessive market borrowing, so there is a fear कि we may fall into debt trap. That is the apprehension, but you will have to take some calculated risk. So I hope कि you people are, in the end, you people are comfortable, हाँ या ना? It's still not over. Should I increase the level further? और मैं एक level जाऊं? It's a part of your syllabus. Questions are coming on those things. And after going through my classes, when you see the question previously asked, you will find that questions are very easy. Yes, Abhishek, only tomorrow. I need to give you some time, okay, so that you can, again, you are totally exhausted now. It seems, okay, मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ता है teaching the same thing for so many years. But to understand, okay, it is very exhaustive. And particularly, I am very fast. Okay. No break, nothing. So meeting you tomorrow at the same time, continuing with the same concept, borrowing from market.